Hey, hello everybody. Am I live? Am I live? Okay, it looks like I'm live. Hi. Oh my gosh, wait, 1 second. I've been running around here trying to get ready for this broadcast, and I forgot a drink. I forgot a tasty, cool drink. It's a little warm in San Francisco right now. Hi, everybody. Adam Savage here in my cave. It is, what is today's date? It is, wow. My phone doesn't automatically tell me the date. No, it's just telling me. Anyway, what is the date? Is it the 22nd? 23rd. It's June 23rd. Wow. Thank you guys for joining me a couple of weeks ago for the super chat. And thank you for joining me today for today's super chat. Look at that chat window flowing past. I am going to try and answer some of your questions today. Well, I'm going to successfully answer some of your questions. Well, successful from my standpoint. I don't know if it'll be successful from your standpoint, but that is what today will be spent doing. I'm going to begin with a show and tell like I did last time. I thought I would show you, I talk about swords and movie props, and I've made some swords untested. But I don't know that you've seen, and you've heard about that there are different types of stunt and hero, non-hero props made for films. So there's close-up hero camera stuff, right? Like whenever you saw Aragorn or Boromir's sword in Lord of the Ring, whenever you saw a close-up, that was a real steel sword. That was made as finely as Peter Lyon could make it. But when they're in battle and they're hacking away at each other, those were probably rubber swords. And there's a big gamut in between those two poles. So I thought I'd show you a little bit of what that gamut might look like. So here what I have is, excuse me, I have here a stunt sword from, I think, from the Scorpion King. That's the Rock film. And it's that this is how you use it. This is a stunt sword from that film. And it's lovely. It is made of a hard urethane rubber. This might even be polyurea. I'm not sure. It is bendable. I believe it probably has a steel spine in it, but it is made to be less than harmful when actors are running towards each other and clacking their swords together. I also possess in my collection this. Now, this looks the same. In fact, there's so many ways in which these two swords look functionally identical, except that this is much more of a close-up sword because it's actually made of metal. It's cast aluminum, which means it's heavier. So my suspicion is that this was used for more close-up scenes. They get real sound on the day of. They get sounds of these clanging into each other. But for your basic non-stunt trained actors, you give them these rubber things. In fact, we've heard this from Weta and from other stunt people. More stunt people are injured by rubber weapons than any other kind of weapon, which makes sense. It's like most accidents occur 1 mile from your house because that's where you do most of your driving. Most of the fighting is with rubber swords. That's the way I'm assuming this number breaks down. I'm not sure. It is funny to feel the difference between these two things. You could actually see, you could imagine an actor being like, having spent a day with this. Oh, also, that's the other thing is this is really heavy. And there are ways in which directors absolutely love to give their actors heavy props because they feel and look real as the actors utilize them on screen. There's also a great reason to give actors fake blades. Almost every samurai sword you see in the movie is made of aluminum. And that means that the actors handling them, they look much stronger because they're moving, the aluminum's lighter by half, I think, and they're moving it with what looks like a lot more strength. But in fact, it's simply because the aluminum is lighter. This is funny. In this case, the aluminum is heavier, but it's cast aluminum. Now, where do you get cast aluminum done? That I'm not sure about. This seems to me like one of those things that, like, if they're somewhere in the Caucasus Mountains shooting that they found some local place to do aluminum casting. That's entirely how films sometimes work. However, the parity between these two pieces leads me to believe that this was actually cast off of one of these. And that would be the sensible way to do it. You don't want to try and replicate an aluminum casting to a resin casting. You'd rather go in the other direction. There's my little show and tell, some movie prop history. Not prop history, but sort of prop breakdown, I guess. How's everyone been doing? How's the lockdown treating you? How's the slowly opening up treating you? Yeah, that's the real one, right? I was pleased, I will say, personally for me, I was pleased when I went to the protests that I have not suddenly been turned into an agoraphobic, someone who fears crowds. Certainly, crowds are to be feared. However, here in the Mission District in San Francisco, I saw complete ubiquity in mask wearing. Every single person was wearing a mask. That made me feel very safe. It made me feel very well taken care of as part of the community of mask wearers. The Bay Area's COVID numbers, they're hard to pin down, but it feels like we're in a space where people are taking it seriously. Most people. Wear your masks. Wear your masks. It is literally the least you could do. It is such a tiny inconvenience. For the reward, if we all wore masks, we would kill this thing. That's not a political statement. That is a scientific fact born by study and research and data. Yeah. There's my PSA. Wear your masks. And now I think I will answer some of your lovely questions. You can see, I actually just want to point out, you can see behind me here, a masterpiece of engineering. This is one of the helmets made for the movie Alien Covenant by my friends at FBFX. And it's just one of my favorite pieces of my collection. I've been just like refining it. Sometimes when I come in here and I don't have like Mondays and Tuesdays are like my logistic days. That's lots of meetings, lots of phone calls, lots of just like buttoning down the details. So I rarely have time on a Monday or Tuesday, and sometimes even a Wednesday, to take care of anything substantive. So I have little projects like this where I can just pull it out and there's some bits and bobs to add to it and some things to do to make it accurate. I've got a list near it and I'll just pull that out, spend some time doing that between the meetings. It's kind of like the way I down regulate. But here we go. Oh, here we go. Break, build, repeat. Chad is the first super chatter today. Thank you, Chad. We appreciate your support. Your support in this super chat helps keep Tested running, and we really appreciate it. The fact is, the entire Tested team is employed and working full time, all of us from home. We miss working together. Our check-in calls, it's like more and more, everyone's kind of getting a little more distant from the camera, sort of like sitting there looking longingly, remembering what it's like to work in an office. Yeah. But your support during this super chat helps us keep the lights on and keep everyone working, and we really appreciate it. Chad says, any new or unheard of makers who have caught your eye? Who are some of your mentors in the film industry you would recommend studying? Thank you and all the Tested staff for the resources you teach us. New YouTubers. Let me just see here. I'm just going to double check my subscriptions. Let's see. I just subscribed to a channel. Wait. Did I subscribe to that channel? No, that's not the one. It doesn't tell me what the more recent ones I signed up for are. I subscribe to over 50 YouTube channels. Obviously, you know, there's a lot to go over. I've been watching tons and tons of machinists making things. The COVID lockdown has all been about the precision of my machines. This has been like just a recurring theme. So I've been watching tons of machining videos of people cutting threads. We have a thread cutting one day build coming up this month. I keep going back to ClickSpring because I find Chris so comforting. I find those beautiful close-ups he films of the builds he does really comforting. New and unheard of makers that caught my eye is a great question, and we're going to bookmark this. And when we release some videos later on this week, cut from this, we will include some links because I didn't prepare for that question, but it is a great question and deserves a good answer. Who are some of your mentors in the film industry? Well, my first real boss in the film industry was Jamie Heineman, my partner on Mythbusters. But my first mentor in the film industry was Jamie's partner, the late and no less great Mitch Romanowski. Those of us that were lucky enough to work with Mitch, Mitch was an unbelievable font of knowledge and incredible problem-solving abilities. Mitch ran the shop for The Nightmare Before Christmas. And just because maybe it's been a while since I've talked about The Nightmare Before Christmas, picture this movie in your head. You realize that it's stop-motion animated puppets. And then it's important to remind yourself about this movie that every single puppet was stop motion animated, and every single thing their eyes and ears and face and mouth did in every frame was adjusted and often sculpted separately for that frame. So for every word, verbiation, mouth movement of every character in The Nightmare Before Christmas, there was a separate sculpt that was sculpted, cast, engineered to fit on the original puppet, and then painted. The work is jaw-dropping. The amount of human years of labor in a movie like Nightmare Before Christmas, directed famously by Henry Selick, produced by Tim Burton. A lot of people think that Tim directed it, but he did not. Henry Selick went on to do films, like James and the Giant Peach and Coraline. Wait, no. Did Henry do Coraline? I might be getting that wrong. We'll double check that for a second. At any rate, Mitch ran the shop that built all these tens of thousands of tiny pieces of each character and all the hand props and the sets and the pieces of all of those. Nightmare was a multi-year project. And because it was so dense in terms of the amount of products and pieces and bits and bobs that it needed, they hired every model maker in the Bay Area, which is actually the reason that Jamie hired me in the early 90s, because everyone was employed by Mitch working on Nightmare. So thank you to Nightmare for that. Mitch came over after working on Peach. He came over and partnered up with Jamie, and they formed what ended up becoming M5 officially. They took over Colossal's old studio and turned it into their own business. And Mitch died a few years ago, and we had a lovely memorial for him. Henry was there. A lot of our old ILM buddies, Fawn Davis and I, were both really close with Mitch. And man, Mitch just had weird, wonderful bits of knowledge. I remember him explaining to me, and I really don't think it was self-serving, even though Mitch was a dedicated smoker. He was like, cigarette smoke helps kick cyanoacrylate glue. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that someone only tells you at 4 a.m. during an all-nighter. Mitch was also not only a mentor in terms of the physical process of making for the film industry, but also for the mental calisthenics you go through. So we're working on a Owens Corning Super Bowl commercial, and it's 4 a.m. The shoot is in 4 hours. We're literally working up formulations for casting with silicone so that it is finished at the very moment we need it. It's an all-nighter. You're pulling an all-nighter. You're barely human at that point at 4 a.m. And Mitch turns to me, and we're both sort of like slaving away at the stuff to get it ready. But by the time the crew shows up, and he says, yeah, at this point you get really philosophical and you remember it's just a effing commercial and it doesn't really matter. This was my boss saying the correct and most important thing, which is you bust your ass to get these things done, but the stakes aren't life and death. They're film, and this is film, and you've signed up for this level of stress, which is one of the things that those of us who work in film, we love the level of stress that the industry provides. But at the end of the day, you're just making a thing. It's, again, the stakes aren't life and death. That's what he reminded me at that moment. Thank you for that question. I like talking about Mitch. Yeah. I cut my teeth on a lot of builds with him and learned a tremendous number of small, amazing little details. Mitch was a born teacher. He was cranky. He was morose. He had a dark sense of humor, but he was lovely. I loved that guy, and I'm sad he's gone. Sam Folks asks, "Hi, Adam. I was excited to meet you and show you my giant mechanical wings I made at Kansas City Planet Comic-Con. Hopefully we can see you in August." Well, I hope so. I'm not sure what cons are going to be happening in August, but we'll see. But giant mechanical wings have been on my mind a lot. But then you know that because you're telling me about yours. There's so much to talk about giant mechanical wings, but because it's in the works, because it's percolating. I was going to say percolating. I was going to work too hard for that word. Because they're percolating in here, I'm going to leave the discussion of giant mechanical wings to the side, because hopefully by the end of this year, you will see some giant mechanical wings from this shop. I'm not sure whether it's part of a costume or a build or both, but wings are awesome. And actually, wings are awesome, and they've been on my mind because, one, I read Walter Isaacson's incredible biography of the Wright brothers, which is incredible. And more than that, the story of the Wright brothers is so good. I feel like my history teachers in high school were like, they were leaving money on the table from a narrative standpoint. Let's just put it that way. Because when you learn about the Wright brothers, you learn, oh, these two bicycle mechanics watched birds for a long time, and then they built the first airplane. That's what a lot of people know about the Wright brothers. Do you know that their very first airplane prototype flew on its first try? What? Do you know that they spent years breaking apart each piece of the plane and testing each one individually and solving each problem as they went before joining them all together in that first prototype? But here's my favorite fact from the Walter Isaacson biography. Kitty Hawk, which they chose because they wrote to all the weather stations for the U.S., whatever was the U.S. Federal Weather Agency, and asked where wind was high and steady and there was a lot of sand. And all these people wrote back to them, and Kitty Hawk was where they decided to go. But let me just explain how far away Kitty Hawk was. Even though it's on the outer banks of the Carolinas, it was still 2 days to get there from the nearest civilized port. You had to go to the nearest civilized port and then take a sailboat there. It was so remote that most of the population of Kitty Hawk was descendants of shipwreck survivors. Wrap your head around that. But that right there is like an HBO show. Shipwreck survivors provided the largest population of Kitty Hawk. That's how far away it was from the rest of the United States. And they went there for years. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff in that. And that's been making me think about wings, because during the lockdown, my wife and I and my mom and I, we spent a ton of time at Golden Gate Park. And we've been watching the herons, the gray herons, the blue herons, and the cormorants, and all the other beautiful birds at Golden Gate Park. Yeah. And we've become kind of bird obsessed. So we've been doing a lot of bird watching. And when you do a lot of bird watching, you start also watching how they take those wings and not only fold them out and take off, but also how they fold them back. And that's also been percolating in my head. August McKenna says, now that RadioShack and its wonderful electric project drawers are a thing of the past, where do you go to source all your project electronics? Well, Amazon for the most part, DigiKey for the hard to find stuff. There are a bunch of robot building marketplaces that are fabulous for exactly the kind of components I need. But for the most part, since I'm not a real electronics person. I know how to make a battery, make a light go, and I can probably get a circular potentiometer in there to adjust the brightness, but that's about the limit of my electronics knowledge. I can read a meter for continuity and for voltage, but when we start to get into resistance, I need to start looking up charts and everything. So that's a long way of saying I have most of what I need here. Recently, I needed some bigger potentiometers for adjusting motor speed and brightness of bulbs, and I purchased a few. And that's kind of how I deal with it here. I'm like, oh, okay, usually I use 6 to 12 volts, sometimes 5 volts. So let me get some potentiometers that can handle a reasonable amperage at those voltages, and then I'm kind of covered for a couple of years probably. I miss the RadioShack drawers, but here's what I don't miss about the RadioShack drawers. You would go to RadioShack and you'd be like, all right, I'm getting this thing going, and I need 4 80 ohm resistors. And I guarantee you that every time you went to RadioShack, they'd have 3. I just never found the exact number of the thing that I needed at RadioShack. It was always 1 or 2 less. And that's almost worse than not having it, frankly. Oh. You know, when RadioShack was sort of like circling the drain, they reached out to Jamie and I as we started some discussions to be spokesmodels to help the Shack, as I think they were looking to pivot it, reboot. And we thought we would be perfect for that. I don't know where those discussions never led to anything, but that would have been fun, right? What I'd really like to do is to have someone like RadioShack call up and say, how do we serve the maker community? Yes, and that would be the question I'd like to answer. Because frankly, that's where RadioShack, I mean, you know, RadioShack was still where, when they were still here even a few years ago, they were charging like $15 a piece for a rewritable DVD CD, right? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, never mind. Okay, I don't have to spend the rest of this Q&A trashing RadioShack. I miss them. I wish there was something like them. Online is where I find all of my electronic stuff. Shanna Miller says, I just want to support the team and thank you for all the great product, all the great content. Thank you, Shanna. I really appreciate it. By the way, I'm wearing another piece of tested product, this beautiful illustration of my charnel funereal rickshaw for Spot, who I'm recharging Spot's batteries today for the first day in a few weeks because I wanted to see him go. It's been a while. And yeah, it's funny. We had to move over to the storage space. By the way, when I was building this rickshaw, everybody at Tested had the same initial response. They went, "Wow, it looks great," but you could tell there was something else on their mind. I'm like, yeah, it looks great. And it turned out that the other thing on their mind was, where the hell is it going to live? Because it's getting tight in here. It's getting hoardery is what's happening. And we managed to find space for the rickshaw over in my storage space and on my t-shirt. Atl H, A-T-L capital H, Atl H, Atl H, Atl H. Trying to see if there's a pun there, but I can't find it. Adel H wants to know, hey, Adam, I'm a teacher. My hat is off to you. And we'll be running some maker-like classes next year for 13 to 16-year-olds. Any beginner projects you think would be cool to take the students through keep being awesome? Yes, I totally have a beginning maker project for 13 to 16-year-olds. Here, this right here, this. Everyone's got some of this at home. Corrugated cardboard. It makes the world go round. It literally travels around the world and helps make the world go round. And you have tons of this in your basement every single day. We all have crap tons of cardboard, and it is the gateway drug to making. This is a fantastic structural material. It's corrugated, so it's got 2 sides, but it's mostly air, so it's lightweight. When you join it together with hot glue or PVA glue like Elmer's or an all-purpose glue like Duco, you could glue it together with rubber cement if you want. It is about one of the most important prototyping tools I can imagine in my head. And what I would suggest to you is to make a helmet using cardboard and then turn that into a pattern and have the kids make some helmets that they can decorate themselves. What? There's my suggestion. There's a curriculum-ish. You could have them make a cockpit. So I I have a cockpit here at the shop. I shot a show and tell with it recently, so I'm not going to tease what it is because it's a thing you haven't seen before. But I've always loved cockpits. The first one I made was made out of cardboard in my parents' guest room closet. And all the cockpit layouts of almost all the NASA spaceships, from the Mercury to Gemini to Apollo to Space Shuttle era, the cockpit layouts of all of those ships are things you can download in PDF form. They are. I have a blow up from Lunar Replicas over there of, I think, the Apollo command module's cockpit. Yeah, I think that is. You could download one of those cockpits from any resource online that has pictures of the layouts of NASA cockpits and make those out of cardboard. Another thing to consider. Yeah. But cardboard construction. Glue guns are inexpensive. Hot glue is inexpensive. That's my favorite thing to use with corrugated cardboard. I'm currently internally in my head working on a one-day build that is actually a couple of pieces of furniture for my house. And this is intense because it's not just shop furniture. It's got to work like for humans, right? Not just shop people. This is like the difference between carny folk and regular folk. And so in the construction of this, I want to make sure the size is exactly right. So I am going to mock up these two pieces of furniture out of corrugated cardboard, put them in situ, see how they feel before deciding upon the final dimensions. I still use corrugated cardboard for prototyping on a weekly basis. Yeah, it's great stuff. Good luck, Alt Age. That sounds like a fun class to teach. Millennial Max wants to know, my boyfriend Oren loves your videos, and part of his workshop burned down recently. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, he's having a hard time. Some words of encouragement would mean a lot to Oren. Okay, the first thing I'm going to tell you is Tom Sachs said this great thing to me years ago. He said, every artist's biography has a chapter in it called The Fire. This terrifies me, right? Because, look, I think about losing this place on a fairly frequent basis. I'm a blessing counter. I spend a lot of time kind of assessing my situation and looking at it and basically being thankful for the resources and thankful for the things I'm thankful for. And I prognosticate about what are the worst things that could happen. And among them are this place burning down. My words of encouragement, man, that sucks to lose your shop. I'll bet if you lost the shop, that it is not the tools or the shop necessarily individually that you are sad about losing. I'll bet there are pieces from the shop that are now gone that really matter to you, because tools are tools. You can replace tools and materials too. In fact, a shop is a place where you can actually do that in that exact space. And to be honest, if this place burned down, I would miss all of this stuff, to be sure. This is a refined group of tools I've spent my whole life putting together. But that's not to say I couldn't do it again. Life and limb is more important. That nobody, I hope and trust that nobody was hurt in this fire that took half your shop, part of your shop. And if that's the case, then that is a real blessing that nobody was harmed. I've lost things from time to time, and I remind myself when I do lose them that they're just things, that they aren't people. When we lose people, it's much harder. But that's the fallacy of false equivalence. I don't mean to say that, Oren, you should feel better because no one was hurt. Everybody has to deal with loss. We will all deal with loss. We will all lose the most important people to us. This is what life is. This is the first noble truth. I go back to the thing I said a few weeks ago during one of these live broadcasts. Read Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, because he talks about sadness and, by extension, I think, mourning in that book. And he advises that in that state of being sad to be what he says, lonely and attentive. So I encourage you, Oren, to be lonely and attentive and really consider about the loss and consider about the rebuilding. Because on the other side of every loss is a reconstruction, right? We reconstruct our lives without the person who meant something to us being there. We reconstruct our spaces without the things that we had. But those things don't define us. They're just stuff that's around, reflects us, but it doesn't tell us who we are. That is a tough one. I hope that the reconfiguration and rebuilding of the space yields you a shop that is even better than the one that was harmed by the fire. Yeah, I really hope that's true. Chris Winters says, I recently discovered your Can Man Live Forever? Oh, Can You Live Forever? Yes, the Discovery Curiosity Special. Not a question per se, but could you talk a bit about that? Yes, I can. Hang on, I'm going to get a prop to talk about that because I have a prop to talk about that. So, when I made this production, they made me really old. And to make me really old, yeah, this is me really old. I'm going to reveal it. To make me really old, they hired my friends at Industrial Light and Magic to build the sets and the props, and just all my old work colleagues working on that show. It was really, really fun. And my friend Danny Wagner, who's an amazing sculptor and artist, sculpted the old version of me. Now, in order to give him the best reference material, I gave him pictures of my father only a few weeks before he passed. My dad died in 1998, late in the year of 1998. And I managed to go see him in the VA hospital he was in just a couple of weeks before he passed. And I had some pictures of that visit, and I supplied them to Danny, and he used those in conjunction with photos of my face to create 120-year-old me. And so here is 120-year-old Adam. Hold on. There we go. This is the show and tell I should have done. Oh, yeah. Oh, whoop. There we go. Yep. Yeah. I love this makeup. I love it's so weird. He's getting a little sticky up here. I think I had a wig up there that's that caused a little bit of silicone age is funny. I'm just gonna have to get a little powder on there. Yeah, I wore this for an entire day. It took 5 hours to get into this makeup. Like they say, right? You know, when they say it took 5 hours to put on makeup. And then I think about the fact that I did this for one day. Gary Oldman, when he did the Winston Churchill biopic, it was, I think, 4+ hours for that makeup every day for 50+ days of shooting. Dude, that is freaking intense. Wow, that's totally weird up there up front. So yeah, the I Can Live Forever shoot was also really fun. That was produced by John Hendricks, the founder of the Discovery Channel. John is an amazing mind. Before I met him, I was thinking, what kind of a man starts a network? What is that person like? And then you meet him and you're like, oh, this is the kind of person who starts a network. There's just a level of charisma and camaraderie in Hendricks that's lovely. And that spilled all the way through my experience with the production of I Can Live Forever. The production team was very interested in my take on their original script. I had some ideas about stuff that they hadn't considered that we put into the episode. It felt lovely and collaborative the whole way through. That was a nearly ideal visiting another production while in the middle of my own production kind of experience, which is always fraught. It's always fraught. The first time Jamie and I did Craig Ferguson's show, he said this lovely, gracious thing to us when we finished. He says, was that okay? Did you like that? Because I hate being on any show that's not mine. And this is totally true. When you have a TV show, you love that show. You love that family. You feel comfortable in that space, and you visit somebody else's TV show and there's no comfort. You think that because it's the same industry, there might be some, but no, it's always weird. You step into some other reality. So to step into the reality of I Can Live Forever team and have them work with my old friends from ILM, have my friends from ILM making props based on me and my face and my head. I have several other pieces from the production in my collection here. And yeah, I will do some show and tells of that over the next few weeks. I think I've got at least 2 other pieces that I can cover on that front. Thank you for that great question. One Wheel Burnout wants to say, hello there from Germany. Hello, Germany. How are you? I have some great friends there. Germany is, I visited Germany for the first time about 3 years ago. The host and creator of Ologies, one of the best podcasts you might not know about, Ali Ward, and I were hired to host a thing for GE, and we traveled around the world doing some stuff for GE, and we got to spend like 10 days in northern Germany, literally like along the coast of the North Sea, ending up in Amsterdam. It was a great shoot. It was a lot of fun, but really mostly so much fun hanging out with the German people and spending time in Berlin. Beautiful city, amazing. And some of the cities in northern Germany, awesome. Yeah, we had a great time there. So hello back to Germany. I hope to visit your country or any other place that's not San Francisco when it's safe to do so. Oh, man. Hey, Luna Replicas. Hi, guys. They ask, you guys are amazing. Keep up the great work. My question, what's the most important way to inspire people to start making, producing art, and removing barriers to personal expression? Well, I don't know about sports, but I can see a softball when it's thrown to me. Listen, the best way to encourage other people to get excited about the stuff that you're excited about is zero gatekeeping. Listen to me, people. Gatekeeping never did anything for the world. You might have spent a lot of time learning how to do the thing that you want to do. And if somebody else picks it up quickly, don't poop on them. Don't tell them that there's one right way to be the juggler, gamer, unicycler, card player, whatever the hell the thing is that you do. When you gatekeep, even subtly, actually, especially subtly, you're telling someone that they don't belong in this club. And there's so much dumb and useless gatekeeping. I've seen gatekeeping, and I've talked about this before. In the cosplay community, there's gatekeeping about whether 3D printing is really doing the work. And anybody who's ever 3D printed something and then painted it to make it look great, I'm looking at you, Daryl Maloney, and all the other Bill Duran and all the other wonderful makers who do this, knows that it's a huge amount of work. There's no cheating with 3D printing. It makes some things easier and makes other things harder. It takes out some work. It takes out a lot of work. It takes out a lot of work and reduces the threshold to entry for making cool stuff. But there is still a threshold to entry. There's still a lot of work that you have to do. So if somebody says they want to try the discipline that you do, they say to you that they'd like to learn how to do that thing, you might feel inclined to even subtly make it seem like it's more difficult than it might be. Or you might just, in your discussion about it, highlight the things that are difficult that you had to learn to get there. And I want to submit that if you're doing that for some ego reason to let someone know that you worked hard to get where you are, you're wasting your time, because that's not the point of that interaction. They are saying to you, I have an interest, and that interest from them is a beam and it's shining somewhere. And when you say, well, it's really hard to make your own wine. I mean, we've been doing it for 8 summers, but man, it takes a lot of, when you start to do that, you're telling them that you're gatekeeping. That's what you're doing. Even if you're doing it subtly, you're gatekeeping. And that's bullshit. You shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, that's it. You shouldn't be gatekeeping. Anytime you are drawing a line in the sand to keep someone out of your club, you're gatekeeping. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that we as humans were built to do that. When we consistently utilize that wonderful phrase, if I have seen farther, it is only because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. That is the antithesis of gatekeeping. That's how the scientific community works. That's why it's so messed up that scientific publishers charge so much to view those papers when they were publicly funded. That's its own form of dumb gatekeeping. But that's a different subject, and I don't want to get off on a rant. Luna Replicas, Max, thank you guys so much. I love your stuff so much, and I know you want to talk soon, and I will. Your masks, the Luna Replicas masks, which have a little wire in the nose now, dudes, you guys are really making my month with those. They're super comfy. We love them over here at Tested. If you don't know about Luna Replicas, go to lunareplicas.com. They make space artifacts and replicas of things from the American space program, but mostly they're just super enthusiastic and they want to share that enthusiasm. Luna Replicas is the opposite of gatekeeping. Go to their website and buy some of their stuff. Support this local endeavor. It's a small concern. It's a small group of people making wonderful things to spread the enthusiasm around. That, to me, makes the world a better place. K3N1, K3N1K, K3N1K. Kennick? I don't know. They ask, hi, Adam, any interest in aquariums? I find making the environments, growing aquatic plants, and keeping fish very satisfying. Just curious if you've ever had any experience. Thank you for everything. I, like a lot of people, I've had aquariums in the past. They're a lot of work. They are a ton of work. That was my experience of aquariums. But they're also like, they're wonderful microcosms. And I in my late teens in New York, I remember one whole year I spent with a little aquarium. I kept getting algae, and it took me forever to realize that I was getting algae because I had my aquarium in the window and the sun was just too powerful and growing lots of algae. I recently came across a post on Reddit that showed a picture of an underwater aquascape, and it was like it looked like Narnia. It looked like Narnia in a fish tank. And so there are all these people that do aquascaping, landscaping, aquascaping within fish tanks. I had no idea. That certainly made my maker brain be like, "Oh, that looks like so much fun." I mean, I haven't yet done a Google search for BioShock fish tank, but I'm sure it exists. Yeah, there's some cool stuff you could play with out there with that. So no, it has been 30 plus years since I've been anywhere near a fish tank, except for the ones that we would use occasionally on Mythbusters to teach goldfish how to remember stuff. But I am also I admire the work and stick-to-itiveness of people who do keep aquariums. And if you do keep aquariums, don't buy illegal coral. That is a bad thing to do for the world. Emily E. asks, I have been a fan of Mythbusters since first grade. Now I'm going to college for tech theater. Woohoo! I'm hoping to get my master's in puppetry arts. Yes! I'd love to know more about your experience with puppetry. It's so funny you should ask because just the other day, who was I chatting with? I was chatting with somebody and I know. I was talking to some of my friends from The Expanse, and we were on a big multi-person chat, and I decided to replace myself with my own doppelganger. Wait, well, hold on. I got to get this right. Just a second. Here we go. Almost. Tested. We're super puppet obsessed over here at Tested. We love puppets. We love puppeteers. We love everything about puppetry. One of my new friends, Mary Robina Cowell, is a puppeteer. I took her workshop when I was at Ord Camp in Chicago in February. Yeah, puppets. we stand the puppets over here at Tested, and this is one made for me by a Mythbusters fan. We covered this on Tested a while ago. We'll include a link. Yeah, we'll include a link in the comments below. And this is a professional puppeteer's version of me using some fur for the beard. He doesn't shave his cheeks as much as I shave mine. No. But yeah, I have a whole puppet rack of puppets. I have a couple of Kermits. I have some puppets made by puppeteers I admire. And on Tested, I know I'm not puppeteering him because I wasn't thinking about actually doing puppeteering. You aren't? No, I wasn't. All right. I'd love to do more puppeteering. That's definitely the truth. And I'd love to get braver about doing it because when I took the class from Mary Robinette at Ord Camp, it certainly showed me how way deeper and more intense and difficult than I thought it actually can be. And also how rewarding because you get to see some of the results right there on camera as they were guiding you to camera type puppeteering. It was awesome. Okay, I'm going to put you away. Really? Yeah, I am. All right. Bye. Bye. Yeah, it's all the... so I'm going to end up with an entire... I'm going to end up with like a rogues gallery of versions of me. It's not narcissistic at all. Mary Cab Lab Creations says, much love from one creator to another. Prolific words of wisdom, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Andrew Irvine says, this time would have been darker without you. Thank you, Andrew. I feel the same. I actually feel the same way. Doing these broadcasts from the cave has been this great anchor. My mom watches them every week. I didn't remind her this morning that this was broadcasting, so I'm not sure if she's watching right now, but she will watch the cut when it's done. It has felt really nice to regularly have this interaction with fans. And so it has also made this a less dark time for me. The listing method and You're Welcome, Future Adam from your book have really helped me. Could you talk about those ways of being, please? Well, so Andrew is mentioning some of the organizational strategies that I utilize in my life and the ways in which I codified how I utilize those in the book I wrote last year called Every Tool's a Hammer. The first aspect of that is the list making. I love making lists and I make lots of them. When I have something with a lot of little components to it, list making is often the only way the list is the whip and a chair with which I tame the lion of a project. There's your rhetorical flourish. And I specifically make my lists with little check boxes. Here, I'll show you one. Here we go. Here's one. That's just some stuff I was shooting last week. You can freeze frame it if you want to and see some of the stuff that might be coming up on Tested soon. But like that's what I do. I make a little checkbox on the side, and then when I finish that item, I color it in. And when I look at a whole bunch of colored in items, it generates momentum for me. For me personally, it makes me feel like I'm getting stuff done. And when I feel like I'm getting stuff done, I feel more energy towards keeping getting stuff done. But you had another part of that. You're welcome, future Adam. Right. That's the other one is shop cleanliness. And I have to admit, shop cleanliness has fallen off a little bit during COVID. And yet it's also picked up. Yeah, both have happened in sort of equal measure. There's been more days when I have worked right up until it was time to go home and have dinner, and I've left the shop just untouched and come in the next day and continued my project. There's been a lot more days like that than I used to have. At the same time, I'm doing a lot more cleaning as I go because this shop is, I know it might look large on camera, but when you're in here, especially when you're in here with another person, which I haven't been in a while, but it's a small shop. And when you start to cover the tabular surfaces, the horizontal surfaces with stuff, it gets tiny in a hurry. And for me to keep up the pace of making that I've been doing during the lockdown, it's been really vital that I clean as I go. Sometimes it means I lose tiny little parts, which I did just this morning. I lost some tiny little I lost this tiny little circle that belongs in the back of the Covenant helmet. I know it's down there somewhere, and I haven't found it yet. It's hard to find because it's kind of the same color as my floor. Anyway, the Thank You, Future Adam is part and parcel of a philosophy about keeping your shop clean, but also about doing anything I don't want to do. I don't mean you, I mean me. This all works for me. Your results, your mileage may vary. But whenever I don't want to do something like clean the shop at the end of the day, and I never want to clean the shop at the end of the day, let's be honest. Occasionally, if I have wrapped my project and I feel super good about it and it's awesome, then cleaning the shop is great. But under almost every other circumstance, any kind of ambivalence for me about my build, or it's not done, or it kicked my ass, then I never want to clean up at the end of the day. And the way I do it is I think about what it's going to be like to come in tomorrow and walk into this clean shop. And when I walk into the clean shop, it says to me that past me thought of me at that moment. And and at that moment when I walk into the shop, I'm grateful. And so present me, who doesn't want to clean up the shop, thinks about the gratitude future me will feel for that shop being clean. And then it helps me clean. That works for me. Again, we all have our weird subroutines we run to survive the world. And some of them we have to ferret out and get rid of. And others work great and we can share them with each other. How to tell the difference between the two? Well, I'll spend the whole rest of my life on that problem. Toby Twiss says, I read your book during a very difficult time and it helped me out. I'm really glad. As a maker, trying to navigate life the best that I can. He would like to say, thanks for not only sharing skills, but benevolence as well. Well, thank you, Toby Twiss. I really appreciate that. I hope that the difficult time you were having has passed for now. And I'll remind you that it'll show up again. Yeah. We are all on it's a wave, right? It's a wave. Milkshake wants to know, are you a big reader? I am a big reader, but it's been really hard to read books during the lockdown. I don't know. My brain just has not been in the space for reading lately. But what is your favorite book, series, and or genre? Impossible to give a definitive answer to that because it changes constantly, but I'll give you some answers to that. Have you read The Expanse series by James S.A. Corey? I haven't actually read those books. I've been a slavish and feverish lover of the show. It's one of the best shows on television. And I am waiting to read those books. James S.A. Corey is a friend of mine, or the two writers that make up James S.A. Corey are friends of mine. Maybe I should say James S.A. Corey are friends of mine. That's what I should say. He says, I'm continuing going, right? Yeah, sorry. Favorite books. I read everything. I read nonfiction. I read fiction. I read classics. Among classics, I would tell you, read Moby Dick. It's weirdly modern from its tone. It's incredible. It's a beautiful book. Read Washington Square by Henry James. Holy cow. You've never seen someone pack so much information into sentences as Henry James. Read Dickens, man. I read Tale of Two Cities a couple of years ago, and it blew my freaking mind reading it for the first time since grade school. I wept through the last 10 pages. It's completely transformative. For the longest time, I said my favorite book was 100 Years of Solitude. That was one of the first pieces of literature I read as a young person that made me feel connected to literature in a way. Like in my late teens, I was reading Milan Kundera. I was reading a lot of science fiction, Stanislaw Lem, Piers Anthony, and McCaffrey, that kind of stuff. And I was reading a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and then coming across 100 Years of Solitude, which grabs you from the very first sentence and never lets go. I read that book. I've read that book like 3 times over the years. Funnily enough, Jamie Heineman will also list that as one of his all-time favorite books. And Jamie and I also both read all of Carlos Castaneda back in our late teens. It might have been something to do with the recreations that we enjoyed as late teenagers. But Castaneda, famously a anthropologist, who wrote a bunch of books that are they're shite on anthropology. They're wonderful on allegory. That's the way I'll refer to Castaneda's books. Over the past few years, I have loved the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child. It's one of my airplane guilty pleasures. I read all the Patrick O'Brian novels, the Jack Aubrey, Stephen Maturin books. There's 22 of them. This year, like I said, I read Walter Isaacson's biography. He's a wonderful biographer. Also, Ron Chernow, the biographer of Hamilton, Washington, and Grant. All three of those books are insanely great. And if you're liking the history, read some Jay Winnick, W-I-N-I-K, I think Winnick. April 1865 is incredible. He's written some wonderful histories. So I love that kind of nonfiction. I read fantastical nonfiction this year. Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad will blow your freaking mind. That's magnificent. That's one of the last books I was actually able to finish. Stand Up Math's beautiful book, Humble Pie. Yeah, I've listed a lot. Yeah. If I have a favorite author, I'm going to list, there's two favorite authors I have, and they're connected. Raymond Chandler and Haruki Murakami. They're connected. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about their connection. Murakami's very much clearly influenced by Chandler, especially his early books. The Great Sheep Chase, really worth reading. Oh my God, Michael Chabon. Read anything by Chabon. Read Motherless Brooklyn. Oh yeah, that's not Chabon. That is Lethem, Jonathan Lethem. Incredible. Motherless Brooklyn is amazing. Fortress of Solitude, mind-blowing. There you go. There's some books. That's a nice list. And Toby Twist actually had a question. Okay. Oh, no, he didn't. Great. Thank you, Toby. And thank you, Milkshake, for that great question. Nicholas Esposito says, love watching your work. What is the square footage of your workspace? Of my workspace. Yeah. Let's see. Hold on. Here's how we're going to answer that. I'm going to measure across. Let's see. Give or take. Okay, that's 7 feet to that wall from here. And the other side of this workspace is, okay. So this dimension is about 15 feet, give or take, which I believe means that this dimension is going to be probably about 30 feet. Hold on just a sec. Let's see here. I'll do a guesstimate. It's just about 30 feet this way. Can I tell you something funny? So every tape measure in the world has a number written down here on the tape measure that tells you this distance, so that you can bring your tape measure up to something and add that number to the tape measure, to the last number you can see on the tape measure. Every tape measure has this. And I never use it because when I look down at a tape measure, well, how do you see that mark? I'm not looking directly down on the mark here. There's a tape measure in the way of the very mark I'm trying to look at. So yes, technically, I guess that's 14 inches, and to that I add 3 and I get 17 from here to here, but that's just way too inexact for me. And when I met my wife and we've built our lives together, one of the things I have learned about Mrs. Don't Try This is she is a person who adds this number to the last number she sees on the tape measure. And she doesn't understand why it drives me crazy. And it's like, whatever works for you is totally fine. I just can't do it. It's like the the maker in me, the precision part of my brain wants to carry my tape measure right up to the edge of a thing and estimate that little curve and figure out how long the thing is. I don't like bringing this thing into the corner. It just, for some reason, it doesn't work for me. But you weren't asking about that. You weren't even asking about the things that my wife and I disagreed about. You were asking how big the shop is, and I'm here to tell you 15 by 30. It's perfect for one person who never builds anything bigger than like a chair. But it'd be nice if it was a bigger place. Yeah. One of my dreams is to have a space big enough that I could pull my Land Cruiser in and work on it in the shop. This is something I've only ever been able to do once in my life. So wait, you asked the square footage. I was just giving you measurements. What is 15 by 30? 450 square feet. There you go. Yes, absolutely. Totally. I can continue. I have support. I have tested support sitting over at the table. We're all wearing masks in proximity, but we are occasionally entering some of the same spaces. I'm taking off my mask to do this broadcast from here, and then I'll put it back on. M750 says, Adam, you emailed me years ago just to say you loved the design of an ROV I built. It's great that as big as you are, you take the time to reach out to makers. Thank you from everyone you've inspired. Well, thank you. I'm so glad. It's nice to hear that when I had a previous interaction years ago, I did not somehow crap the bed by being a jerk. There are not many occurrences of me being a jerk in the past. I mean, we're all Lord's little children. No, I'm glad for that. And yeah, I like doing that. I love it. Simone told me that someone gave her this wonderful advice about being famous. They said, when you're famous and you run into someone who likes your work, you've been given a magic wand with which to make their day just by like being nice and attentive and present with them. And everything you do above that is gravy. And it's really, really true. There's a way in which that you say as big as you are. I mean, honestly, I'm just a person, right? Like any one of us, and I suffer like everybody. But the interactions that I get to have with fans where I can ping someone on Twitter and say, this is a beautiful construction. The thing you built with your kid is lovely. This idea is fantastic. And when I get the feedback that generated momentum for them, that just like makes me so happy. Years and years ago, when I first worked in special effects, I may have told the story during one of the live broadcasts before, but I'll tell it again. I realized I had these new skills. I was learning more and more about making things precisely and beautifully in front of me. And so I decided to use those skills to make my second model of the Blade Runner pistol. And while I was making it, it took me weeks. And I spent weeks in my house, like sanding and making this thing really perfect. And at that time, one of my closest friends, somebody I was speaking to a couple times a day, said randomly out of nowhere, hey, I think that thing that you're working on, the Blade Runner gun, I think that's really cool. I think that's a neat thing that you're doing. And I think your idea to make it into a kit and sell it is also really neat. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. Not just from that person, although that one person, that was significant to hear from them, but also just the random encouragement. And so, yeah, I've gotten so much from the encouragement of the people around me. Like, my wife loves my cosplay. She's not a cosplayer. She doesn't have any interest in putting on a costume, and that's fine. But she loves that I love it and encourages me to delve into that love. And that encouragement is really real and important. Thank you for that. I'm really glad that you were happy with our interaction from years ago. Know that I love I love that process. I love reaching out, pinging people, and telling them that I like what they're doing. Russ Etheridge asks, your enthusiasm is an inspiration to me and to so many. Thank you. I'm a recent father. Do you think your creativity changes with parenthood? Well, in so much as everything changes with parenthood. Here's the thing with parenthood. Here's my description of what parenthood felt like to me. The moment I saw my kid, remember in The Matrix, when they're up on the roof trying to get Morpheus, and Neo says, can you fly that? And Trinity says, Tank, I need to learn how to fly a Huey. And he goes, and she goes, okay, let's go, and runs. Okay, that scene, that's what happened in my head when I saw my kids for the first time. Like, I saw them and I was like, oh, I understand everything my parents did and said. Not quite, but yeah. Parenthood totally changes everything. It changes where your energy goes. It changes how you distribute it. It changes how you work on it with your partner. It changes everything. So, how did I incorporate that change? That's what I think your question is sort of getting at. And the answer is it wasn't easy. I didn't take to it. There were aspects of it I still found really hard. And it wasn't until about 8 months in that I felt like I went through the process to give over to it. So let's say something's happening that you're not super comfortable with. Like, it's raining. It's raining and you don't have a hat on and you're getting wet and you're sitting there going, oh, this really sucks. This rain, it's pouring on me. It's fogging up my glasses. I don't like it. That's one way of thinking about the rain. The other way of thinking about it is, well, I have no protection, so I'm going to get rained on. This is what's happening. This is very Buddhist frame. This is what's happening. It took me about 8 or 10 months of my kids being infants to get to this is what's happening. And fall in love with the work, fall in love with the triage that is raising an infant, the constant bivouacking, the vomit, the bodily fluids from the baby and from everybody else. And the world is packed with people who don't feel like they got enough time with their parents because their parents were off doing other stuff. And I didn't want to be that kind of parent. And the world is also full of people who felt like their families got in the way of their own creativity. And it's really important to me to not live that distinction, because I think it's a false distinction. So yes, the kids are going to change everything. And for the first, you're a new parent. Yeah, you're a recent parent. You just got to give up any semblance of a future plan. For the first year, they're just trying to kill themselves every moment. And you have to have 100% focus. You and your partner both can never lose focus, which is exhausting. And then you start to get out of that phase, and baby starts to smile and starts to be cool. And then you start to build a life with the kid. And that's when you could achieve that life-work balance between the stuff that you do for yourself and for your art and the stuff that you do for your family. And to me, when all of those things work in concert with each other rather than against each other, life feels much better. That being said, that balance wasn't easy for me to find and has not always been easy for me to find. And I've grappled with it in different ways through every relationship I've had. Good luck. It's super rewarding. My kids are 21 now. They're freaking delightful human beings. It's lovely. And I'm still parenting as much as I ever did. Yeah. It's already rendered asks, I think it's already rendered, has already asked a question. I'm not this time, but I think I recognize that username. Maybe not. Do you have a 3D printer? If so, what make and model? I do not personally own a 3D printer. I know. Yeah, we have some 3D printers that tested. I utilize those occasionally, but no, I don't possess a 3D printer. Not to say that I won't. It's not to say that I won't, because there's still lots of stuff I want to make. And it gets more and more. Frankly, I think I might move towards something like a form printer, like a resin printer, rather than a SLA printer. But again, I'm not sure. We'll see. Connor Franklin says, oh, Connor Franklin Leland. Connor Franklin, 3 2-syllable names. Connor Franklin Leland. Says that they met me in 2017, and they said, I met you in 2017 and showed you my staff of raw headpiece. Not a euphemism. Yeah. A headpiece tattoo. If you were to get a pop culture, or more specifically, a prop culture tattoo, what would you maybe get? Look, part of me has always loved the Trump Lloyd tattoos where it looks like the skin is peeled away. So there's part of me that's always wanted a peel away view into the Terminator's exoskeleton or Luke's hand from Empire Strikes Back. That's the first one that occurs to me. I did recently rewatch season 4 of The Expanse, and I love all the Belter tattoos in that. And frankly, some of them are really nifty. And I was thinking, that's something on that, like somewhere on that. I mean, I don't want to do this. That's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. That's the first one that comes to mind, the Trump Lloyd tattoo. But a prop culture tattoo it's not something I've actually considered as a subject matter to put on my physical canvas. Thank you for the idea, because it's definitely something I'm going to be thinking about. Okay, let's see. Jazmine Miller says, me and my dad were watching your microscope optical light and noticed that you forgot the O-ring when you were reassembling. Did you ever put it back? No. Okay, so in a shop, logjam is Tom Sachs's beautiful name for the pile or bin of stuff that has too many categories to easily sort, but is not worthless enough to throw away. And I have a logjam over here. Here it is. So this is one of my logjams. That's my phone. There we go. Oh, you stay. Oh, okay, you stay there. And all right, that's good enough. The O-ring for that microscope is sitting there, and it's just waiting for me to get up the energy to pull that thing off, pop it in, and put it back in. But sharp eyes, nicely done, Jazmine. That is funny. I recently had. This morning, I was at my eye doctor, and they were using one of those slit lights to look at some debris. They were removing the final bit of steel from my eye because I was cutting hot steel on my mill and I didn't use enough eye protection. That's on me. I will. But I was thinking about the microscope my eye doctor was using, and I was thinking about that microscope, and I was thinking, wow, I really want to know what it looks like to look at someone's eyeball through one of these things. Heather Selset says, thank you for keeping us company during quarantine. Is the ornament on top of the rickshaw a cane topper? I don't know if I missed that in a video, but it caught my eye. It is not a cane topper. It's a lamp chunk. I have a drawer somewhere in this cave called Lamp Chunks, and it's pieces of chandeliers and lamp parts that I have collected over the years. Let me tell you something about lamp parts, because they are a rich mine for making stuff, especially proppage. If you had to make a scepter, a king's scepter, for a fantasy king or a real king, man, go to the lamp store and start assembling it out of all that threaded rod and all those pieces with the same holes in them. Yeah, lamp parts are awesome. The issue I have with lamp parts is when people sell them on Etsy or eBay, they tend to charge way too much for the brass stuff. And sure, that's totally understandable. It's brass. You sell it by weight or whatever. But whenever I come across like a box on the street full of lamp crap, I pick it up and sort it and put it into the Lamp Chunks box, because Lamp Chunks have been very fruitful, including that top ornament on the top of the rickshaw. Also, the lights on either side are made of lamp chunks that I collected years ago. Yeah, lamp stuff is really great. Oh, I'll tell you, I made a scepter out of lamp parts for the episode in which Mythbusters was replicating the safe explosion from the movie The Score. Took me a while to pull that out of the mental palace. Frank Oz directed, Ed Norton and Marlon Brando, who was famously a real pain in the ass on that shoot. And they break into a safe by using water and water pressure. And we did the same, but in order to have an item in our safe that we didn't know if it would be destroyed or not, I made a scepter out of lamp parts. And I still have parts of that scepter around here somewhere. Panduras asks, do you like the Mad Max franchise? Have you built some props from this franchise? Thanks for the inspiration. Big fan from Chile. Hello, Chile. Nice to see you. I do love the Mad Max franchise. When I was a kid, Mad Max, The Road Warrior, played almost constantly on HBO, second only to Beastmaster. But then that's what HBO stands for. Hey, Beastmaster's on. The Mad Max franchise is really important. George Miller. The idea that the same guy made The Road Warrior, Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, and Fury Road, and also the Babe movies. I'll tell you a secret. The first Mad Max movie, Mad Max, the earliest one, I can't watch it anymore. I find it too upsetting. I find it too gritty and too disturbing. I can't get past it. All I see is that shot of him looking at the field with his wife and his kid too far away for him to help, and I can't go near it. Spoiler alert. But The Road Warrior is super seminal and important. It introduced me to Bruce Spence, an Australian national treasure, the gyrocopter, the feral kid. Oh my God. Yeah, the colony. So I have actually a pretty complete Mad Max costume that I've never finalized. I wore a bunch of it for the episode in which Jamie and I made the car out of a motorcycle, or the motorcycle out of a car. Yeah, it was the motorcycle out of a car. I was wearing a bunch of parts of my Mad Max costume, but they haven't been fully tied together. I even have the correct leg brace and boots. They're all in a thing. I've just never gotten around to tying it all together. And one of the reasons is I've never found the exact right sawed-off shotgun to go with the costume. I have something that's close, but I haven't gotten that like perfect replica, and it's sort of pissed me off to not get around to finishing that costume. But obviously, like, everybody who makes stuff is kind of somewhere in their heart of hearts, there's a little bit of a prepper in them. So it's not hard to put yourself into a Mad Max type scenario in which resources are limited and you must make the best possible use of them that you can, which is effectively the subject of the Mad Max franchise. So that resonates very deeply with me as a maker. And George Miller, man, one of my heroes. Mad Max Fury Road is just a freaking masterpiece. And so is Babe. Holy crap, what an amazing film. I was just listening. Oh, yeah. I put on some Peter Gabriel the other day, and in the playlist came up That'll Do Pig, his song from Babe. Yeah, lovely. Dep T203 says, you and the testing crew are keeping me motivated. Thanks for all you guys do. We never tire of hearing that. That is our whole raison d'etre. That is the reason we are here, is to keep you inspired. That's the goal. The goal is no gatekeeping, showing you as many different wonderful makers as possible, as many different intersections into making and the creative process as possible. And it means a lot when we hear that it lands, that it has some resonance, because like the satisfaction I get from this discipline, from this creative discipline, is paramount. It informs everything that I do. And being able to spread that around just feels like a guilty pleasure, because you get to watch someone else enjoy the same kind of thing that you did. And maybe they jumped into it because you showed them how easy it was. Man, there's not many feelings that are better than that. The Nets rack, I'm not going to try that one again, says, thank you for being who you are. Thanks for all the great content that you've made through the years. Best wishes to you and yours from Denmark. Denmark, well, hello, far away over there. It's a little late, isn't it? It's almost like midnight in Denmark, I believe. I don't have a Denmark clock on the wall, but I'm just doing the rough math to Northern Europe from here. Ooh. Ryan Nagato was just texting me some fun pictures of stuff he's working on. I can't wait to look at it. And that's what makes me inspired, right? So just know that all your friends who are makers are also trading stuff with each other. I just made a beautiful thing for a friend of mine who's a maker down in the Los Angeles area, and he got it this morning and texted me that he got it, opened it up, and loves it. It's really exciting. Enthusiasm is the opposite of a zero-sum game. It's like love. The more you give away, the more you have. Iron Spine 481 asks, have you ever thought of making a rifle comparison to your Blade Runner blaster? Well, that's funny that you ask. Is it up there? I have a 2-barrel shotgun version of the Blade Runner blaster that was part of a replica prop forum build run. Most of it's machined out of aluminum, and it's beautiful. And in order to do it properly, I'm doing it slowly. So it's not going to be a one-day build for a while, because I'm going to do a lot of pre-work on it before I get it to the point where I can assemble it. But it's a fabulous execution of the Blade Runner aesthetic as a double-barreled shotgun. It's really, really nicely done. I am sorry, at this moment in time, I do not have the maker's name in my head. I am not Norm Chan, who seems to have the name of everyone he's ever met in every movie he's ever seen, cast, crew, and director in his head. Maybe it's just that he's got a younger brain than I have. That's what I'll say. That's the reason. I cannot remember the maker's name off the top of my head. I apologize. But yes, I am currently working on a shotgun version of Deckard's blaster. And I think I'm going to have to make a brand new box for it, because it's not going to fit in the one that I made. I'm out of room in that one. Let's see. Lee Marsh asks, you mentioned model railroads in your books. Have you done anything on this since your youth? This has been my job for 26 years. For 26 years, your job has been model railroads? That's awesome. No, I have not done anything with model railroads since I was 15. That's when I got a model railroad set. I might have even been younger, maybe been 12 or 13. Yeah, I think I was younger. Because I bought some model train books, and then my dad and I made a train station together from plans from this book. And it was the first time I built an architectural type model out of paper from the plans of something. And it's a really great learning experience. And 2 days ago, I was actually looking at Z-scale trains. I was thinking about Z-scale. I was thinking about a discrete train set. And they certainly make them in Z-scale. They make briefcase trains. They tend to be quite expensive. And I was toying around with the idea of diving into that world. The problem is that like there's a lot of like initial things to get before you start to build out the world. And I love working in a super miniature scale. I love the idea of it. So it's clearly happening in here that I want to do that. But no, I haven't done anything train related in a long time, but maybe soon. Who knows? Oh, hey, someone just sent us value for a tip about tape measures. Thank you very much. I guess somebody didn't know that they had the number here. Again, I can't use that number. Can't do it. You tell me now. I can't do it. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She's like, it's right there. It's telling you just add it to the thing. And I'm like, I know. I just won't trust the thing I can't see. I can't do it. I'm curious about your job for 26 years. What is a job? many, many years ago, and I think probably 96, I went down to the Pomona Toy Fair in Anaheim, and there's a gigantic train set down there where they take donations. I don't know what scale it's in. That's beautiful. The Randall Museum up here in San Francisco also has a wonderful train set. I've always loved it when I see big train sets. I loved the weird news story that came out about Rod Stewart being a train enthusiast. Neil Young owns Lionel Trains. I think he still owns Lionel Trains. Does he? Probably does. Yeah, no, train sets are awesome. Did I just jump back into train sets? I did. Yeah, what is a job working on train sets like? That sounds really, really fun. Let's see. Oh, Lee Marsh replies. He builds locomotives. His 5-year-old son is learning how to use a lathe. Damn, that's awesome. When I visit Weta Workshop down in New Zealand, one of Richard Taylor's side passions is 7.5-inch gauge steam trains. And through Richard, I have witnessed amazingly dozens of these trains over the years. And yeah, it's funny because as I've been dialing in my machine parts, I've met many of the makers of these trains too. And I'd like meet a guy who's sitting on top of a 2,500 pound, 10-foot long working steam train that he built from scratch. And I said, "How long did this take you?" And he said, 21 years and 7 months. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing. I love that you know the number like a prison sentence, but you say it with such joy. So as I've been dialing in my machine tools, I've been thinking about these older gentlemen who make these trains that I met and thinking, yeah, that totally could be me. I could totally dive into a whole universe of making working internal combustion engines on these machines because they totally can build those things. Yeah. I also, the paper model of the bathhouse from Spirited Away that I built a good portion of on tour a few years ago. We did it as a repeating tested series that I never finished because I never finished the model. Actually, I still have what I built, and I have all the remaining pieces. I've just never gotten around to finishing it. It is roughly HO scale, actually. And so I have a train car that is pretty close to the train car from Spirited Away. And what I'd love to do is when I eventually finish the bathhouse from Spirited Away, I'd love to have the train go somewhere, right? It should go to Yubaba's sister's house. It's the most beautiful sequence in that movie. Sometimes I play that soundtrack here in the cave just to kind of live in Spirited Away for a while. Okay. Last question. Lance W wants to know if I have a unique, hard to find tool that I use all the time in projects. Lance, if I had one on the top of my head, I'd be using it as a tooltip right now. But since I'm shooting tooltips constantly, is there a hard to find tool I use all the time? I don't think so. I don't think there is a hard to find tool that I use all the time. I think almost everything that I use on a regular basis is pretty not esoteric, but it's an interesting metric. So I'll think about that. It has now been officially 90 minutes since I started. So I am going to wrap up just to make sure there's nothing else. No, I think that's it. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for supporting Tested, our team, helping us keep the lights on. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Thanks for letting us know that we were able to transfer some of our enthusiasm to you. Telling us that simply completes that loop. It's like an electrical circuit where we're all making stuff. Nothing could be better than that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for inspiring me during this time. And thank you for wearing your masks and taking care of each other. Masks is how we get through this. Taking care of each other is how we get through this. I love you guys. Have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I'll see you at some point in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right. Here we go. End stream. Boop. End.